Hello and welcome to day 2 of CoinDesk live from the Avalanche Summit in Buenos Aires. This is the premier Avalanche community event of 2024, and we're celebrating the launch of Avalanche 9000. I'm Jen Sanasi here with Zach Seward in Buenos Aires doing a little dance at 8 a.m. It is true.
We're here.
How do you think yesterday went?
It was great. This place was packed. It was very lively. You kept seeing these interesting sort of like shoots of activity around a couple core pillars within the Avalanche ecosystem. We heard a lot of buzz about gaming, which we'll talk about later today, asset tokenization, Web3 social, lots of interesting stuff that's cropping up in numbers.
It's a really interesting juxtaposition, I think, to some of the other conferences and events I've been to. And regulation is a real narrative when you go there. It's all about the ins and outs of regulation and how we can build but still be compliant. But here, it's really just about building and solving problems for the people that live here, which I think has been really refreshing.
No, it's great to hear. And, regulation always looms large in the US context. I think we had some interesting insights from a couple guests yesterday about maybe a more pro-crypto approach here in Argentina, or at least sort of whispers of something like that in the works. So it's cool to hear the perspective, again, from the global South, in a country that suffers with a lot of economic issues, and seeing these technologies as tools that can really help improve people's lives. So it was cool to have the conversation a bit removed from the regulatory boogeyman, and again, more about real world impact, which was cool to see.
I love that a lot, and I love that we are going to talk more about gaming today. I think that the folks from probably like the biggest game of the last few weeks are going to be here, so stick around for that later on in the show. We're going to talk about Web 2 to Web 3. We're going to talk about Web 3 native games. Have you, Zach,
Jen,
played any Web 3 games lately?
played some games. I looked at a trailer or two.
Which ones?
Looked at the Off the Grid trailer this morning just to bone up on my Web3 gaming knowledge. We're going to get back there. There's actually a demo booth set up, so I'm going to get back there at some point today and actually play the thing.
I love that. Take some video.
Let you know how it goes.
Put it on Twitter.
We'll see.
All right. All right. We got a bunch of interviews coming to you live from Buenos Aires today. Before we get to our regularly scheduled programming, though, let's take a look at the chart of the day. According to Chainalysis, Latin America is the second fastest growing region they studied this year when it comes to crypto adoption, with a year-over-year growth rate of over 42%. The on-chain analytics firm said in a recent report that the growth has been driven by strong and diverse crypto markets in Venezuela, Argentina, and Brazil. Argentina leads the LatAm region in terms of cryptocurrency value received at an estimated $91.1 billion. Argentina's long battle with inflation has left many citizens looking for alternatives to protect their savings and secure a more stable economic future. To protect themselves, some Argentinians have turned to the black market to acquire foreign currencies, and others have explored USD-pegged stablecoins. That is a wrap for today's chart of the day. We will continue to explore some of these themes in today's broadcast. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, a special episode of Markets Daily. And welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are recording a very special episode of Markets Daily right now, live from the Avalanche Summit, the premier Avalanche community event of 2024. On this show, we navigate the currents shaping the crypto market. So whether you're actively trading or just curious about the volatility that is the crypto markets, this show is your compass navigating what's happened, where we are, and where we are going. I'm Jen Sanasi. My co-host Zach Seward is with me today, and joining us on the show is Dragonfly General Partner Rob Haddock. Rob, good morning.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great morning.
Sunny well, it's not sunny today. No. Cloudy Buenos Aires.
That's true. But it was sunny yesterday.
It was sunny yesterday. It's still a vibe. Yeah. People are trickling in. We're here to talk about the markets. Let's start broad and we'll bring it back to LatAm. What are you watching in the markets this morning?
I think right now, like broadly up into the election, we're just going to see a lot of volatility. So I think people have to be prepared for that. We've like the 1 month vol on Bitcoin is about 60%. That's increased a lot over the last couple of weeks. If you look at funding rates, they've kind of blown out and over 10% now in a way that they weren't before, which means that the market is really expecting there to be a lot of growth and kind of positive price reactions over the next couple of weeks. My expectation is that it could be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, and people should be a little bit more cautious, especially if they're thinking about using leverage.
Okay, so do you see the election as a big clearing event for the crypto markets? Do you think there's going to be a lot of activity around that once some certainty emerges, or do you think it's going to be largely a non-event?
I think it's largely a non-event. So what's funny is you always see every year in every election, you see a lot of volatility up into the election. You hear a lot of people like pontificating about, okay, well, hey, like this is good for their risk asset, equities, crypto, whatever. This is bad, et cetera. And like famously, actually, Sam Bankman-Fried talked about this in his book, where Jane Street was very positioned one way for a Trump presidency, and the markets had the exact opposite reaction. And what you realize is that like most of these things are actually priced in, and people look at probabilities, and that's the way that they end up positioning themselves. And the reality is like we have a lot of catalysts for crypto today that are positive, and that's whether or not whoever wins, right? So Kamala's in, her administration has said if they were to win that they would be much more positive for crypto. Obviously, the Trump and potential administration has talked about that significantly. But even so, like, Bill Haggerty had a stablecoin bill last week, right? Like it's clear that the current Congress and the people who will be in, whether it's Kamala or Trump, want there to be better legislation and more clarity around crypto, and I think that's a good thing, and people are positioning for that now. So I wouldn't expect there to be a lot of movement one way or the other, in the, call it, medium term after the election. The day of, who knows?
Elections aside, what other catalysts are you looking at?
So, it's really interesting. So we're here at the Avalanche Summit, right? And one of the biggest stories of the last week has been Gunzilla Games, right? And so, 3.5 million users in 2 days, right? So that's more, basically, we had at the top about 30,000 people trading NFTs in 2021. So you can just see the delta, how many people we brought into using a blockchain, Avalanche, for trading digital goods, because we were able to bring them into this kind of Web 2 game. So things like that are what I'm focused on. Polymarket's been really interesting this year, a big success in terms of bringing non-crypto people into using a crypto product. Gunzilla Games, obviously, I just mentioned. And so I'm looking for individual type things like that, where we can have endogenous events that aren't just, hey, macro related, which frankly, recently, crypto's been a lot of macro.
So, I mean, tell me if I'm right in taking this out of what you just said. Do you think games is going to be a big narrative in 2025?
I think for games, there will be a few big narratives, and I think Gunzilla is one of them. I think it is hard to extrapolate that to a lot of other things.
Okay.
What I would say is, I think crypto broadly is a lot around financialization, right? And so different projects that do a good job of providing interesting ways that people can participate in economies and that can financialize or have, maybe different types of derivatives on top of what is things that they like to do every day. So Polymarket's actually an example of this, right? Because people are getting into their group chats and they're saying, what is going on in this presidential election, or what is happening in, any sort of event. And then they're saying, I want to, take a position on, whether it is that I want this person to win or the sporting event, or even actually they have these things called mention markets that are doing really well, where people are actually taking a position on what will people say during these different types of televised events. And that's really interesting because it's actually becoming more social, but with financialization on top.
Rob, Dragonfly obviously deployed across a bunch of different networks. When you guys look at the health of these networks, be it at the L1 level or be it even at the DApp level, what are the metrics that you're really looking at right now?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on the exact type of application that we're super interested in. So in many ways, things people talk about like TVL, or they talk about transactions, they talk about wallets, and all of those things matter, but they matter for different reasons, for different types of applications. I think the number one North Star for me when I'm looking at, say, like an L1 is, what is the developer mindshare? who actually wants to build there? Do the really smart people coming out of Stanford and MIT, is that a place where they're saying, okay, this is a place where I think that has a good ecosystem, has good infrastructure, and I can tap into a community that I want to be interacting with. I think Avalanche has done a really good job of that, and you can see it in how excited everybody is here to be here these past couple of days. And then we really see, with that, ETH mainnet, Base, Solana, that's kind of the group that we really see that people are really excited about right now.
How are you quantifying sort of mind share? Do you have a way to do that, or is it more qualitative in terms of who you're talking with?
So it's quantitative in so much as a lot of people go out and talk to these developers, and they they do surveys, and they get that feedback on like, what are you thinking about, or where are you thinking about building. And so Andreessen had their State of Crypto report that came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and they went out and talked to thousands and thousands of developers, and they said, okay, well, what are you thinking about, or who are you thinking about building on? And still today, Ethereum is number one, even though I think people have not been super happy about price action there. But Ethereum's still number one. And then the biggest growth we've seen has been in Solana and in Base in the last year, with Avalanche being right there as well. And I think those are the things that you try to refresh yourself regularly. It's hard to do that on a call it a week-to-week basis, and if you're trading. But if you're thinking about the long-term health of these different communities, it's a really good way to think about that.
I want to turn now to something you tweeted recently that I want to unpack.
she's
no,
going to
don't
the
worry.
No, this is good.
Don't worry. I'm not putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
It's not a surprising tweet. Yeah, you tweeted that crypto is in crypto we just keep learning the same lessons that were learned in TradFi, but years later. I think that's really interesting, and I want to unpack that a little bit. Like, what does that tell you about where we are right now, and where we're going?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has been really interesting about crypto is, in many ways, it was started as a new financial system, right? And that's what people want. That's what people see Ethereum as being, is we can get rid of the intermediaries and we can reinvent that. But it's often come from a tech-first perspective, not from a financial perspective. And so some of the things around leverage or around types of products that work or don't work. And I think I was tweeting specifically there about basically like crowdfunding platforms, which I'm actually very bearish on, but everyone is there's high FDV, low float meme. There's like, oh, we need to do crowdfunding because that's more egalitarian or whatever. Those things do not work, and they haven't worked for decades in regular finance. And I don't think they're going to work in crypto. And I think the 2017 ICO boom also tells us that they will not work. But sometimes people just need to learn it for themselves. That said, where are we going? Is I think we're going to a world in which we can make at least parts of the financial system better. We can have more ownership around and more community building, that we can be closer to our different users, and we can get rid of a lot of the inefficiencies that exist in traditional finance.
So you're not on the bring back ICOs bandwagon.
No,
that
so
we're
silly.
hearing that drumbeat a little bit more lately. Bring back ICOs. You're definitely not in that camp.
People forget that ICO, like in 2017, was a disaster. Like most of it was just like it wasn't just like, oh, like these are not good builders building bad products. It was like direct fraud, and it was in my mind like.
People forget that.
I think people forget it. We were talking about it on a panel yesterday, and people are like ICOs, and I'm like, what do you mean?
Fair launch.
It's terrible.
You're speaking like a true VC right now, man.
Yeah,
And
well,
Zach's
that's true.
drumming the
No, it's not me. The people. The people are out here.
Hitting the drum.
I think the people want they want good things to invest in. They want stories to invest in. They want to be closer to the things they are investing in, and they want to be able to make money, right? And like at the end of the day, like if you can help these people make money, they will be more committed to your community in the future. And so there's been some like bad price action on quote unquote VC coins, but that is more around how we think about token economic structure than we think about how things get launched or funded pre-TGE. And that's a place where I think there is a lot of interesting things that we can do. Things like having not hard capped FDV or the amount of tokens that can be issued in the future, and instead doing something that we might have learned in traditional finance, which is that if you need to dilute something, you just go back to governance and you add more tokens or you add more equity in the traditional world. And so there's ways to, I think, iterate around this that aren't selling whatever to whoever and with no diligence whatsoever.
Then to coin anyway.
Okay.
All right, we got to wrap up in just a second, but I want to bring it back to LatAm because that's where we're sitting right now. What trends, if any, are you watching in the region?
Yeah, LatAm's really interesting because so the first thing I did when I landed here, 3 hours later, I went with somebody to Acueva. And these cuevas, essentially, you are kind of gray market brokers of USDT for maybe paper dollars or pesos here. And one of the things you've seen, and you talked about the chain analysis report on the opening, is that just the hunger for dollars and the demand for dollars in places like this is really high. And stablecoins allow that to happen in a way that just couldn't happen in the traditional banking system. And so what we're really excited about is figuring out ways to invent and bring different types of financial products to people in places like Argentina that just they couldn't have had access to before, because the world is globalizing and borders are breaking down, and crypto are going to be the rails of that, in my mind.
We gotta go, but I really want to hear about this experience at it's an Ecueva?
Yeah, that's right. I think I'm saying it right. Somebody in Argentina might.
These are the blue notes, right? You got the.
Well, there's the blue notes, but you get different rates for different types of notes.
Gotcha.
But it looks like basically it's not a storefront because they're still gray market. They're technically illegal. But you go into an office park, you go up to the second floor, you walk in, and it looks like a traditional office. And they sit you down and they show you a Tron address, and you either send or receive, and you give them cash. And frankly, it's like not that different than going to the dentist. That's what it feels like.
All right. Well, on that note, Rob, we are going to have to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Dragonfly General Partner Rob Haddock. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, the co-founders of Inertia join us to talk about the future of prediction markets.
Bye.
Rob.
Thank you.
Welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are coming to you from the Avalanche Summit in Buenos Aires, the launch party for Avalanche 9000. I'm Jen Sanazzi here with my co-host, Zach Seward. And joining us now are the co-founders of Inertia, Anish Latkar and Mark Villafuerte. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Good morning to you both.
Buenos dias, BD.
BD. So you guys have been in Buenos Aires for quite a while now, right?
About 6 weeks.
Is my mic on?
Yeah,
you're sweet. Okay.
You're good.
Yeah. We've been here for 6 weeks, and the high school Spanish is all slowly coming out.
And he's just been our translator this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got straight C's in high school for Spanish. It was terrible. So
Zach's
I'm not doing a very
been
good job.
carrying me with the Spanish. All right, let's level set here. Talk about Inertia. Just for the uninitiated, give us the quick TLDR on what you're building.
Yeah, so we're building out a social prediction market platform where essentially anyone can come in, join communities that they care about, and create and launch a prediction market in under 60 seconds.
Got it. Cool. So prediction markets have been like a breakout sort of primitive this year, with Polymarket seeing a lot of success, a lot of interest around the elections, right? Those markets are surging. Your thesis is that that's going to tail off after the election, and then what? How do you sort of innovate on that model that they've sort of found product market fit around, and how do you make it sort of, I guess, more social is what you're saying?
Yeah, I can kind of start off here, and Mark, feel free to fill in any gaps. I think, the big question everyone's asking, right, is what happens to prediction markets post-election season, right? And the big thesis that we have, and what we've been seeing kind of, is that there's a lot of other niches that we think can scale, that prediction markets can scale into beyond crypto, that are really going to start taking a float, post-election season. That's going to look like, reality TV, culture, various things around that. And right now, prediction markets are very centric around crypto, politics, or finance. But what about the other 90% of quote unquote normal people?
Yep. How small can you go? How niche can you go? Could you do a market for this show right now, or is that gonna not have enough critical mass to be fun for people? Can we predict on what someone is gonna say in this current setting? Is that something that you guys would be able to support?
Yeah, so I mean, anyone can come in and create a prediction market about absolutely anything, right? And our longer term vision is to integrate, with different platforms and have easy plug-in solutions to make prediction markets on the fly. So for example, you look at a lot of these mid-tier streamers, growing size streamers, a big problem they have is monetization, right? Now Twitch does have this Twitch predictions thing already integrated. However, the big issue with that is while it does provide, support for, helping engage your community, it doesn't provide streamers any source of revenue. But now imagine if you could do the exact same thing on the fly and earn some money alongside it. Now you've just solved a big problem that a lot of mid to growing size streamers have. And the same could be applicable, as we want to build out tools in the future with other niches.
Let's talk about regulation for a second, right? Polymarket's probably the biggest prediction market in the headlines right now, not available in the US. The CFTC has proposed rulemaking for prediction markets in the US. How are you taking that into consideration while you're building this out? Or are you just completely not focusing on places like the United States who have not warmed up to prediction markets thus far?
Well, we believe in decentralization. We believe that blockchain is a global technology. And some of these Web3 companies just haven't done the job in that way. We have built the first of its kind fully on-chain order book with speeds comparable up to Polymarket at this point. I think it's just a bit of laziness if a Web3 company doesn't adhere to decentralization. Avalanche is really great with the L1s. It's going to be really helpful in terms of bringing down costs, bringing execution speeds even higher. And making something that people actually love to use, rather than just like, okay, this is the product that we can make with the technology we have right now. Whereas, Avalanche actually brings that a bit forward.
And to add a little bit onto that, I mean, we all know the CFTC did sue Polymarket, and by the way, like Polymarket actually is freaking phenomenal, right? They're really, really cool. But I think the big issue there was the fact that they were taking the order matching for their order book off chain, essentially. Which is why they got sued by the CFTC. So it's really difficult to make, an order book fully on chain. And I think back, a few years ago, right, when Polymarket was kind of building all of their infrastructure out, blockchain technology wasn't there. It wasn't up to the point in where you could do all of these things on chain with the speed that's required for consumers to have a good experience. But now we've come, 2 years ahead of time, and we do have kind of this infrastructure, especially with Avalanche, where you can build these things out fully on chain in a permissionless manner.
Talk to me about your personal experience of getting into this. I understand that, you sort of, gamble among friends on the outcome of various things. Is this sort of a manifestation of that personal history? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a really funny question. So all of our friends, so we essentially come from the same high school, same college, University of California, Irvine. And we have this giant group chat with all of our friends. It's called the D-Gen Gamblers. And yeah, we would literally watch streamers. We'd make bets in Discord chats with live streams, especially throughout COVID and stuff too. Like, what's gonna happen? Will, I don't know, Jinxie go get that girl's number on that live stream, or even now, will Kai Cenat bring on another celebrity in the next 14 days? Right?
Another burger, right?
Jesus, the McChicken or whatever. But yeah, so a lot of that, but the real idea actually came from Mark and I met, there was this panel that I had hosted for blockchain at UCI. And essentially after that panel, we had talked for,
2 hours.
Yeah,
like that.
something super long, right? And the entire room had cleared out. We were just literally standing in one corner of the room, just yapping afterwards. And it was that was the first time we'd ever met. And after that, we started getting closer, going to conferences and all that sort of stuff. And we started building out a bunch of little projects together. And we actually ended up starting you want to tell them about the initiative?
Just a little prop firm, for a few months we're on chain, just trying to make money however way we can. I graduated recently.
College students,
Yeah, we're college students. I recently graduated. I was like, hey, Anish, let me bug you. We've gone to a bunch of ETH Denver hackathons together. Why don't we try our hand at something versus me going off and actually going full time somewhere. It was a lot of fun. I think we learned a lot that time, and it really brought us to where we are right now. We found prediction markets that way. We saw alpha in that stage, but we were really disappointed in terms of the various niches that we could actually implement strategies on, and that's kind of what drives some of the product decisions that we have right now.
Tell me about that future you imagine. Is it that I go onto a social platform like Twitch or YouTube or Instagram and I can participate in a prediction market somehow? Or is it that there's a social platform specifically for this kind of activity that lives outside of the big social platforms?
I can start, and then Anish, I think you can expand. If you look at Twitch right now, the way that Twitch streamers currently grow is not by growing on the platform itself. They actually have channels on YouTube channels, and that brings audiences into their own streams. So the way that we see it is, people can make prediction markets on inertia, but then also have to have audiences outside of it, so that we can create this flywheel effect of just being across the internet.
Yeah, and I think as builders, we and the team have a lot of ideas with where we want to take this, and a lot of cool, visions that we have for the future. I think prediction markets can be used in a whole variety of ways, right? Like we imagine people coming onto inertia.social and creating private markets with their friends, being able to group chat and message people within the actual application itself. So, it's gonna dive into like making, fun little bets with your friends, doing Twitch streams, and eventually, I have a lot of friends at other universities that, have a football team. Unfortunately, UCI does not. And oftentimes, the fraternities and sororities will have these bets with each other, and then they have a bookkeeper. But, it's this giant Excel sheet, and it's a lot of mental math, or it's a lot of physical math, and it's just really, really complicated. So we really see prediction markets niching down to pretty much any community and being able to fit into those things.
Degen gamblers sounds very crypto native to me. And so, how do you think about attracting folks who have never heard the word degen, who have never participated in crypto, who are happy making these bets amongst friends, but might not understand how to use something like this?
Okay, I really want to start here. So it's really interesting because about half the people in that Discord are not crypto natives. They're like sports bettors, or they're just friends who watch streamers and stuff, right? And yeah, Degen Gamblers technically is a very kind of crypto native thing, but I think the key right now to onboarding quote unquote, normal people who've never heard about crypto is essentially abstracting. Obviously, like we've always heard this, right? Abstract away the complexity of the UX, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I think especially from, what we've seen at blockchain at UCI, like a big part of what we did was bring in non-crypto native people, and upskill them to be like familiar with the world of crypto and then go on like consulting and stuff, etc. But essentially, everyone's tired of just seeing crypto and seeing blockchain. And if you say cryptocurrency or blockchain to the average person, red flags and alarm bells start ringing off. And for good reason. There's been a lot of controversies in the space, to say the very least. It's still a growing industry. So I think the best way is keep blockchain working quietly in the back end. It helps build out your platform. It helps provide the best experience to your users. And you just tuck it away in the back end.
Yeah, I want to zoom out from inertia a little bit and focus in, I guess, on blockchain at UCI, right? Among the college builder cohort, what are some of the other things that you find people drawn to that they're building right now? You guys are obviously doing you guys are doing the prediction market path. I'm sure others are doing different things. At the college builder level, what are you seeing excitement around?
AI. I mean, AI is obviously a really, really big thing.
Oh no, did the college kids pivot to AI too?
Everyone has.
Terrible. No, come on. What else in crypto are we talking about?
I think RWAs are definitely a big concept that has had staying power this bull run here. I think zero knowledge proofs were really, really big last ETH Denver, but I think a lot of the builders kind of stepped away from the limelight and are quietly working on that sort of stuff on the back end. But I think aside from that, a lot of the stuff I am also seeing is a combination of like Web 2 and Web 3, right? Building products that utilize the best of both worlds, because Web 3 pure decentralization is very, very good, but there are just certain things that you can't make as efficiently, with blockchain technology that would benefit better for an experience for the consumers with Web 2.
Yeah, I'll put that to you as well. Like among your cohort or at Irvine or elsewhere, what are you seeing?
Well, we also see a lot of like meme coin kind of infrastructure that people want to make. Whether that's an MVP, like a Discord channel where everyone's saying like, shilling their bags, where it's like, okay, hey guys, buy goat, something like that. Or actually building out like a tool to be like, okay, this is a thing to scan meme coins and seeing trends and so forth like that. Some people are really excited about that space, and it's a lot of fun, sure. So I wouldn't, knock it
Zach
down.
went a little viral yesterday, part of a new meme coin community, maybe.
Oh.
Yeah, you can check that out on Twitter.
Cocky Inu.
Okay. You've gotten red pilled, I see.
Okay. All right. But yeah, we should do like a culture map at one point of like Gen X crypto,
Totally.
like millennial crypto, and then Gen Z crypto.
Gen Z crypto is looking very insane.
That's what I'm saying. Like Gen Z crypto is going to look really crazy.
I agree.
Anyway.
I agree. Many things Gen Z look crazy to me, but that's because I am old. Mark, Anish, thank you so much for joining the show. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
you
much
guys.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
Yep.
That was the CEO and COO of Inertia, Mark Villafuerte and Anish Latkar. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the top news headlines today and dive deep into Web3 gaming. Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk live from Argentina. We are at the Avalanche Summit, the premier Avalanche community event in 2024. This is CoinDesk Daily. I'm your host, Jen Sanasi. FTX Engineering Director Nishad Singh's lawyers have asked a federal judge to spare him prison in a sentencing submission document filed with the U.S. Southern District of New York on October 16th. The filing describes Singh as an uncommonly selfless individual and includes more than 100 letters from family, friends, and former colleagues. Singh pled guilty to 6 criminal charges, including fraud and conspiracy. Blockchain lending protocol Radiant Capital lost more than $50 million on Wednesday as the result of an apparent cyber attack. An attacker allegedly gained control of the protocol's contracts by obtaining 3 of the 11 private keys that control the protocol, according to security experts. The firm said the exploit allowed attackers to drain users' funds, namely USDC, WBNB, ETH, and others. It's the second time this year that the protocol has been targeted in an exploit. In January, Radiant lost $4.5 million in an underlying hack stemmed from a bug in its smart contracts. And Italy is raising capital gains taxes on cryptocurrencies. That's according to a report from Reuters and Bloomberg. The Italian government will raise taxes on capital gains from crypto to 42% from the previous 26%. Maurizio Leo, the country's deputy finance minister, spoke up about Bitcoin during a conference call. He said, "Phenomenon is spreading." The move comes as Italy decided to strengthen its digital services tax as part of plans to raise more revenues in the 2025 budget. That's a wrap for CoinDesk Daily. Get the latest updates on CoinDesk.com. All right, back to our regular programming now, Zach. Zach's just shaking his head over here. We got to get through the news headlines. All right, we're going to welcome our next guests to the stage, and we are talking all about the future of Web3 gaming. Please join me in welcoming to the show Maple Story Head of Business Development, Angela Sun, and DeFi Kingdom's President, Dreamer. Hey, guys.
Doing all right.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Thanks for being here.
It's a little bit chilly
Joining
this
us.
morning. Yesterday it was like getting nice and warm, and now we're here early.
Yeah, it was nice and
Rainy and
sunny
chilly.
yesterday, but now we got the overcast. We're chilling. We are literally chilling.
We're experiencing it all here in Buenos Aires, and right now we're talking about games. It was a big theme yesterday on this show. Everyone was talking about Web3 games, especially off the grid. I hate to be shilling one project so much, but everyone is
Wow.
talking about it here at the Avalanche Summit. And I got to ask you both, Dreamer, I'll start with you. What is this success, this frenzy, the fact that everybody is talking about off the grid, the fact that off the grid has surpassed Web2 games like Fortnite and Rocket League mean for the industry?
It's huge. So we've been building in this space for 3 years. We started before anybody even talked about Web3 gaming. So DeFi Kingdoms 3 years ago had an idea to gamify DeFi, make it easy and fun to come in and start being in DeFi, understanding NFTs, and are building a game on top of it. When the bear market hit, everybody's like, Web3 gaming's dead. You would see that tweet. You would see people pulling out. You would see people no longer delivering on the money that they got from VCs, but others continued to build. People like DeFi Kingdoms, people like MapleStory, and people like Gunzilla building off the grid. Now, when it hits, for it to not only be big numbers in the crypto space, but big numbers in the big boy gaming space, this shows the potential of the technology. Others will pay attention, and as we see that lagged follow-up, the next 3 to 5 years are going to be huge for what we all knew was possible years ago.
Angela, I want to get your perspective. That's obviously Dreamer's perspective from someone who's been building a Web3 game for the past 3 years. MapleStory, already massive IP, already dominating the gaming space outside of Web3. What does the success for Off the Grid mean to you? How are you looking at it?
I mean, honestly, it's a very, very happy situation for everybody involved. I would, I'm not going to lie. We've been in the business, the online games business for 30 years now, and we've seen a lot of games just rise and a lot of people adapt to new technology and new experiences. And I think, the success that we're seeing with Off the Grid is sort of like, like a showcase of how this industry is evolving and how we are also evolving with the technology and how we can showcase this experience to users at the end of the day. And so MapleStory universe, I think, is going down a very similar path and thinking about the user experience and thinking about, like, how is this going to translate to the end user? How is this going to translate to the experience and the ramping up and everything in the midst of all that? And I think, we're at this stage where we can comfortably say, hey, we sort of now understand the technology and we're getting into the nitty gritty of how we can really implement this in real life and deliver this as a convincing experience for users. And I think, we're definitely seeing, a lot of like growth here. So very exciting.
Angela, I want to stay with you. I just love the idea that MapleStory is a 21-year-old game, right? That people have been playing all these years. There's obviously many, many learnings that you can take from running a game for that length
Right.
of time. What's like the number one value add that you see by adding Web3 to the mix with the MapleStory universe that's upcoming sometime
Right.
soon?
I mean, we have learned a lot of lessons during our servicing of the Web 2 version of MapleStory. And at the core of that was, the importance of the community at the end of the day, the importance of users who come into the game and enjoy the experience and build the experience themselves. So the core thing that we have actually, learned the most was it's the users and it's the community at the end of the day that shape a culture of the game, that shape the experience, and that define what MapleStory is. Because if you think about it, like, you play a game called MapleStory, but then when you think about all the experiences that go into that, you also think about watching YouTube videos and walkthroughs and talking with your friends online and meeting new people just inside the game, and all of that constitutes MapleStory. And so, diving into this Web3 experience, I think the main way that we wanted to utilize this new technology was not to introduce something that is completely different from, what we have been offering in the past. Rather, we think of this as an upgrade or an expansion of sorts, and we're using blockchain to really be able to incorporate the community and what they're also building into the MapleStory experience and recognize their contributions and say, hey, like, this is an IP, this is an experience that we grow together. It's
Yeah, Dreamer, I want to put that community question to you, right? You mentioned the builders who stuck around. Presumably some users also stuck around.
For sure.
How do you keep the community engaged, right? I mean, I think all of us sort of suffer to some degree from the shiny new object syndrome. You guys have been building for 3 years. People have been sticking with you through that time. How have you kept them loyal?
Well, I think being willing to survive is a big show of dedication to the community and transparency. So many of our counterparts, when their funding fell through or tokens go down or people are all at each other's throats in crypto, they just kind of back up, give up, start something else later. We never did. We went through hacks where we lost our whole treasury. We had to continue to raise, not traditionally, but with blockchains, because you see the headliners that off the grid's doing 5 to 6 million transactions a day. We were doing that 3 years ago. People knew our potential and we didn't give up. The last piece is transparency. Traditional companies, they report quarterly. We report weekly. We have weekly AMAs where our community submits questions. Maybe they're concerning, maybe they're fun, maybe they're around gameplay. Every single Thursday, we take an hour, hop in our either Discord or Twitter or YouTube, and we stream and record our report to our community. They're the stakeholders. The fees in the game are what are sustaining our building. So we feel an obligation to be as transparent to them and make sure we take their feedback and their concerns. Now, it makes it really difficult because sometimes we want to go one way and they want to go another, and we have to find that middle ground.
Tell us more about finding that middle ground, and let's start with the hack. How did you deal with your community during that hack?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a hack that was related to us. It was related to a previous blockchain, a chain that shall not be named, but actually it's called Harmony. So there was a hack related to their bridge, which is their direct, probably main attack vector in the space. There's a lot of bridge hacks that happen. We had nothing to do with it, although it drained our treasury. So when we come back, it's very hard to say, hey, this wasn't our fault. We were exposed. This is what we're doing about it. We're taking our IP. We're finding other chains that are willing to pay us to bring our transactions to them, and other chains where we could build new custom solutions. Chains like Avalanche. At that time, we had just launched the very first L1, still the largest L1, 750 million transactions. Other chains like Clayton, and more recently, Metis. That's how we sustained ourselves and answering the question of what do we do next?
You built a game around DeFi, right? And so I can imagine that your audience is Web3 native, really interested in the financialization of games. How do you sustain an audience like that?
It is really hard. If you notice, my jersey says DFK because 3 years ago, everybody's like DeFi, DeFi, DeFi. Now they're like, DeFi game. We're like, no, we gamify DeFi, yes, but we're also tokenizing an MMORPG game in more of like the Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft style. So if you were upstairs yesterday, we reported on our battle system. We're in the battle, 3v3 turn-based battle. There's 30 different tokens represented. The heroes are NFTs, the weapons are NFTs, the potions are tokens as well. You got skins overlaying. So it isn't just about DeFi. That was the foundation to build a play for fun game supported by all the marketplaces and tokens.
Yeah, Angela, I want to turn that to you, right? So I think like the interesting thing about GameFi, even with like Web3 social, right? There's the game part of GameFi and there's the Fi part of Fi. And maybe in the early days, you guys were more indexed to the Fi part of GameFi.
Yes,
You guys, I would imagine, are maybe more indexed to the game side. Where do you see sort of identifying that balance between the two things such that people stick around and get enjoyment from these titles?
Yeah, no, I really strongly believe that the core of all this is to really balance like the product that you're working with, the IP that you're working with, and work with the fundamentals, right? And I really love how Dreamer said that, you know, MMORPGs is also about DeFi, it's also about the economy part of the game. And I would want to echo that like really strongly. If you think about MMORPGs as a genre, like, you know, just in general, it already has a very robust economy system inside the game. And one of the core parts of managing and doing live operations on a game like that is also managing the economy and being aware that people can already trade their in-game items with another user inside the game. And I think where we're going with this is adding blockchain onto MapleStory does not change the core premise of what the game was and how users enjoy the game. It merely expands this to a whole another dimension. Now we're saying like, hey, you can transparently look at all of the transactions that you have had. You can look into, you know, the nitty gritty of the numbers and the transactions that are happening usually behind the scenes, like, you know, in the past. And we're also saying that now transactions or, you know, interoperability that allows us to just be, you know, a little bit more present, not only inside the client of a single game, but beyond that, like on a website, in mobile form, or in console, or even in the more, you know, financial-ish apps. Like let's think about it. If you are looking at an NFT and all of the gear and the items inside our games are NFTs as well as the characters. If you focus on the gaming part, then we could easily be talking about expansions like a Move to Earn MapleStory app where your character grows as you know as you move and walk. But then we can also be talking about the economy part of this game and talking about, hey, because these items, your sword basically already has a lot of value that other people do recognize also. You can play off of that part and go more into the financials and say, hey, we're building a lending protocol. And so I think, you know, we don't have to think about growth or expansion in one single way, focusing only on the game part or the finance part. If we are working off of a genre that already specializes and is already like centered on both, we want to be as balanced as possible and really believe that at the end of the day, this is what the users want as an authentic MapleStory experience.
I want to go to the back end for a little bit, talk tech a little bit. So I think, so zooming out, I would say a lot of chains are vying for the Web3 gaming prize, right? You know, whether it's Sui, whether it's Aptos, whether it's Avalanche, whether it's Polygon, whether it's Solana, right? From the outside, I'm very curious, sort of the technical due diligence that you guys do. You mentioned your subnet / Avalanche L1. What are some of the technical benefits that you see about developing in that context? I'll put that to you first and then over to you.
Well, if we think about a game on the blockchain, now you have players that are going to be experiencing new problems, gas, wallets, onboarding, and then we even mentioned bridging if you have a cross-chain game, and then the different risks associated. What certain games are doing are trying to make that as seamless as possible. Now you can go the way where you don't even realize it's there, or you go the way where you're also educating people in crypto so they take control of their finances. So now we're looking at subnets. Subnet solves a lot of problems. If you look at an Avalanche Layer 1, or previously known subnet, it makes it so that if gas is going up, and gas is the cost to transact on that blockchain, if it's going up, it's because your own users. Now, if you're on a blockchain and somebody else is very busy and active, they might impact your experience. Maybe it gets slower. Maybe it gets more expensive. That's where being on almost an island, your own chain, or as Gun says, many of these chains moving as one that can interact with each other and communicate, you're solving those problems. You can choose to have your interface be more easily acceptable or accessible as well. So now compared to other chains, nobody else is providing the same experience to launch your own blockchain for your own app in as seamless and highly like technical advanced way. Low finality, low fees, easy to set up.
So yeah, same
Mhm.
question to you. Why the Avalanche L1 route as opposed to other paths?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the business of operating a game and servicing, especially on global, you got to recognize that like you're not talking about a service that's going to be open from 9 to 5. You're talking about a service that has to be open 24/7 with reliability and sustainability. And honestly, I think the conscious choice to work with subnets for us was really in that matter, in that space, thinking about the user experience at the end of the day and being able to provide, an experience that is reliable 24/7 365 days of the year. And I think, the Avalanche team was great in understanding, the the stability and the amount of like structuring that goes into building a game, like a whole MMORPG out. There are so many complex elements that go into MapleStory that needs to be supported by such tech. And I think the confidence just also really came from the fact that, we have success cases like DeFi Kingdoms already up and running, and this just kind of like really showcases the dedication that all of the parties, like us and Avalanche and all the guys included, are making to really be able to put something out there that can last a very, very long time, possibly the next 20 years.
Angela Dreamer, thank you so much for joining us on stage this morning, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you for having
Right,
us.
thank you for having us.
Being here.
That was
Village.
MapleStory Head of Business Development, Angela Sun, and DeFi Kingdom's President, Dreamer. All right, I think we got all the Web3 gaming chat out of us, Zach. We're going to be talking about supply chain next, and it has to do with psychedelic mushrooms. And so when I say that to you, what do you think?
I think it's great. I'm excited. I'm
You're
happy to
excited?
learn more.
You're
Let's do
excited
this
to
thing.
learn more about
Yeah.
psychedelic mushrooms and the blockchain? I am also excited to learn more. We're going to take a quick break. Stick around. Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are coming to you all the way from Buenos Aires, Argentina, where we are celebrating the unveiling of Avalanche 9000 at day 2 of the Avalanche Summit. Now, I said we were going to talk about psychedelic mushrooms after the break, but I lied. That is coming. That is how we get you to stick around. Avalab's president, John Wu, is joining us now. John, how did day 1 go? It looked incredible.
It was awesome. You were here. How
I was
great
here.
it was.
It was stunning.
Attendance was fantastic. Very dev heavy here. A lot of the members here were having a great time. Everyone I talked to. I went to 2 dinners last night and talked to everyone, and everyone said they had a great time and learned a lot.
Anything surprising? What stood out? I mean, you know the ecosystem better than most, but is there anything that that caught you unawares in terms of excitement, interest, activity that maybe you weren't fully anticipating?
So this is the first regional summit, very focused on developers and the builders. The excitement around entrepreneurialism and the stuff I talked about, entrepreneurialism in the Web3 context, and how people are embracing open innovation as opposed to just open source code, that was really exciting. And I liked the fact that everyone here is really getting the ethos of like, hey, I can be my own startup with just myself. I don't have to do it the traditional path of like going and fundraising through VCs. You can do that if you want, but I can do it my own because of the composability of the tech and building on top of what other people have built. And that's a community. And this is what it is all about.
You just said it's the first regional summit. What other regions are you looking at? Are you looking to expand
Can't say
summits
that.
like
There's
this?
going to be a big announcement on Friday. So you
Oh,
have to stick around till Friday.
All right, stick around. Soon TM on that one. This sort of, I mean, what you just said sort of sounds like the Avalanche 9000 pitch, right? You sort of lower the barriers to entry. You provide some of that back-end support that builders need. Talk to me about how that sort of dovetails with the push for Web3 entrepreneurship that you're talking about.
Sure. So entrepreneurship in Web3 is being able to work and build off of other people's things. I think yesterday I said it's like you're building a brand new house, but you're plugging right into the public utility. Now, Avalanche 9000 enables all that. It's got fast, reliable, and composable tech. That's very important. And it's customizable tech, purpose-built blockchain L1s for yourself, where you get to set the terms. And what's even better is there will be built-in coordination mechanisms, because one of the best things is the community around your project or but you need coordination within that community. And Avalanche 9000 has the tools for founders and entrepreneurs to actually coordinate their community in a well-designed way.
We've talked to a lot of builders here at this desk. We've talked a lot about stablecoins. We've talked about gaming. We've talked about social prediction markets. When you think about where you stand in Web3, what sector of this industry gets you most excited?
I love all of it. I mean, I love the crypto native projects. I think you guys just had Dreamer on from DeFi Kingdoms. Fantastic. Love them. I came from a world of traditional finance. I personally love things that are what I call real world activity, blending what you would do in the traditional life into a Web3 context. And there's nothing better example than that than Off the Grid. It's been a huge success of a game. I think there's over 6 million wallets, 60 million transactions, 4 million transactions a day they're up. And this is a AAA publishing type game that competes with Fortnite. And on the Epic platform, it was #1 this past weekend. I think it's like 1.6 million views already, 1.6 million hours of views on Twitch. They're just competing with any other normal game, but blockchain enabled. That's the future. You want to bring the next billion people into blockchain through mixing real world activity on the blockchain.
Yeah, I want to ask about sort of this fragmentation conversation that's coming up specifically in the Ethereum ecosystem. You know, we talked with Goon yesterday about this briefly, and I think, you know, obviously like Avalanche 9000 is a way to sort of fight that fragmentation within the broader ecosystem. Does that inform sort of like the design choices that you guys are making on a technical level as you see this roll-up centric roadmap sort of create a lot of drama over in ETHland?
Listen, this is what I believe. I think the reality is there's hundreds of thousands of developers in this ecosystem of Web3, us, Ethereum, wherever you want to call it. There's like 4 million developers on Apple's iOS system. There's like close to 10 million in terms of Android phone development. There's like 40, 50 million developers in the world. It's more about like, how do we bring more of those over here than thinking about the fragmentation here. Everything here is going to be interoperable one day. People can move from Ethereum to Avalanche, Avalanche to Ethereum, to other places. Interoperability, let's just focus on bringing traditional developers into this ecosystem. This place is still just emerging in terms of the whole ecosystem of Web3.
So when you talk to those developers who are well-versed in Web2 stacks, what's the pitch that's resonating with them? Is it the ownership of the things that they're building that exists in Web3 in a way that it can't in Web2? Is it non-ideological? Is it simply there's some tools for cool stuff to be built? Look to Off the Grid or other things that are sort of obscured from the back end. Like when you talk about bringing this set of developers over into this part of the world, like what's working as it relates to that pitch?
Developers want to do things that's cool. And they want to be able to do it the way they want to do it. They want the freedom to experiment and do things in an open innovation, open source type environment where the code is composable. They get to do that. They get to experiment. They like to also show it to other people. This is why GitHub is so powerful, so they can code and other people can see how cool their code is. They want to do cool things and they want to build on top of other people's things so they can build theirs faster. So that's what they really care about. But the user on the other side loves the fact that it's self-sovereign identity. How great is it if you can have your data, your digital fingerprint, and port it to another social media platform if you want to do that? You have a say in where your data goes and how it's used. I think that concept, when it really expands into the traditional world, so to speak, and the adoption curve really goes up on the S curve, more and more normal people, call it non-crypto enabled, will love the fact that they can really own their digital fingerprint. Because right now you don't. Your whatever social media platform you use, your data, you're stuck and you're owned by whatever platform.
Tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, we on this show we talk to a lot of different layer ones. How do you think about remaining competitive? How do you think about continuing to attract developers who are going to build cool products to attract those um, consumers over? I know that there was a $40 million grant that was recently launched ahead of the upgrade, but tell me a little bit more about that. Like, how do you stay ahead of the game when there seems to be a new layer one, layer two, layer three popping up every day?
No, that's a great question because if you look at traditional businesses, if you compare and contrast Web 2 versus Web 3, Web 2 is all about a fixed pie, and then what you're trying to do is create moats. Web 3, it is easy to take bits and pieces of what you've done, which if you have a mindset that it is okay, you're actually thinking about growing the pie, and then your slice of the pie may be a smaller percentage, but it's actually bigger. So first of all, people have to get to the mindset of like, I am growing a pie as opposed to taking a bigger piece of a fixed pie. And what the way you continue to do that and get your call it development out there is that it goes back to the Lego piece. You have to build very good tech. You have to constantly innovate. But think about it this way. The edge comes when, if you're a Lego piece 1 and someone wants to use your Lego piece, and then someone else takes Lego piece 2, puts it on top, and someone else takes Lego piece number 3, if Lego piece number 4, they can either use 1, 2, and then put it on top above 3 or under 3. The key is you have to build innovative tech so that your piece of the Lego stack never gets removed. And people always want to use your tech. So you have to constantly innovate.
We were talking to Rob Haddock from Dragonfly earlier and asking him about what he's looking at when he looks to L1s and what are the key metrics for success. And I thought his answer was interesting. It was developer mindshare. What are you guys working on to sort of, whether it's through grants, whether it's through education, whether it's through events like this, what are you guys working on to, again, expand the developer mindshare that's dedicated to the Avalanche ecosystem?
Rob is a very smart guy. Dragonfly is a great firm. He's not wrong. Developer mindshare is very important. But I think where we may slightly differ is he's talking about developer mindshare in this Web3 ecosystem only. I want to get developer mindshare from the guy who's developing on an Apple iPhone, iOS, or Android phone, and get those guys also developing in this ecosystem. And they don't have to be full-time. Come here, have fun in their spare time, create your little side gig or whatever, and have fun and enjoy it, because that's what they like to do. That's what they do in their free time.
John, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. I know the event is just getting started, so we hope you have an amazing day, and we'll probably see you later.
I will, and you will too. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Zach.
That was Avalabs President John Wu. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
All right, thank you, guys.
Welcome back to CoinDesk Live from Buenos Aires. We are at the Avalanche Summit, Avalanche's premier community event of 2024. We are now joined by Borderless Capital to discuss the $50 million LatAm fund launched right here at this event yesterday. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Of course. Okay, $50 million.
Yes.
We got to talk about it. You launched it here yesterday for the LatAm region. Talk to us about who you're hoping to give the funds to.
So basically, Borderless has been in Web3, investing in Web3 through 6 different funds, global funds, since 2018. We have over 300 companies in our portfolio, several $100 million under management, and we have some connections with the region because some of the partners are from Argentina, and we've seen that we built a portfolio, a really strong portfolio of LatAm companies, without even being actively looking. And so after a few months of analysis and research and looking at what's going on this year, especially after Crecimiento Aleph earlier this year, we realized that this is the region where we want to launch our first regional fund. And we're super excited. We want to basically identify those incredible projects that are coming out of the region but can have global potential, because we are in a place where you see specific use cases that you don't see anywhere else. After the financial inclusion themes, economic crisis, we're used to using blockchain as a way of living, and we believe that that's gonna be incredibly impactful in the next cycle at a global level. So we're looking after those type of projects that can build on top of global blockchains and global platforms, and also we look at global projects that see Latin America as a place to deploy their solutions and explore and do some uh, pilots because of the incredible adoption levels of the region.
And from the foundation perspective, we've had a lot of conversation with Borderless, and as we were approaching the partnership, this kind of came naturally. As you see, we came to Summit here in Buenos Aires, and we are doubling down in the region, and this came like a very natural next step towards the space, no, and bringing Avalanche closer to this community that I think it's highly needed, and there's also a very unique opportunity within the region. This is a highly educated, technically capable region that has a lot of fractured financial systems, and Web3 directly solves that. And us, as tokenization of the world's assets is our mission. This was just very natural fit, and was very excited, about this partnership and investing in this fund as an anchor investor.
Yeah, and for us, we have, of course, conversations with a lot of players that are interested in the region, and Avalanche was, they were ready. They said, okay, this is what we need to build. They, of course, are anchor investors on the fund, so we're super excited about that. And we all believe that the LatAm ecosystem in Web3 has the next cycle an incredible opportunity to become a global.
We've had the opportunity to learn a lot about the Argentina crypto scene. Shout out some other countries in the region where you're seeing a lot of interesting activity. It's not just Argentina. Argentina has its unique opportunities, unique challenges. Is it Brazil? Is it Mexico? Where are you seeing other activity pop up?
As Matias said, the tokenization of the real world or the traditional world is a really important thing for us. Brazil is at the forefront globally. Not only the government, the state has a mandate to be the first large economy in the world to be fully tokenized. And you can see that in regulation, you can see that in the sandboxes that have been created, and you start to see it in really interesting projects going in that direction. So for us, that's a clear, interesting market. And then of course the usual suspects, Mexico, the closeness with the US, the whole remittances corridor that has a lot of opportunities, payments, etc. Those are big economies that, as in Argentina, lack sometimes a lot of traditional infrastructure, and you start to see some projects that are born there that have global potential. For us, it's not just looking at local things. Of course, each of the markets, especially Brazil and Mexico, can support large companies that are only operating locally. We are interested in going global. And for us, as Borderless, being a global investor and having the connections at the global level, we believe that we can kind of help them bridge that gap.
It's in the name. There's no borders.
There is.
It's in the name.
And you know what? I was talking to someone yesterday, and we came up with the name with the idea of borderless in terms of frontiers. For us, it's also borderless in terms of blockchain platforms. So we believe that the future is borderless also. And Avalanche, we had a conversation with them, and even the design of Avalanche is it's multi-chain. We need to go into that direction. People need to be flowing.
Tell us more about the innovation you're seeing in the region. We've talked a lot over the last day and a half about stablecoins here at this desk, but I imagine that there is innovation happening in many different areas of Web3. Talk to us a little bit about what is exciting you.
So we see a few themes. There's a lot of going on around payments and remittances, which is related to stablecoins. We really like tokenization. There are a couple of companies we invested in with previous funds that are tokenizing real-world assets. There's a company called AgroToken, which is tokenizing the soybean, and then with that, now they're moving to tokenize other commodities. And the interesting thing about that is that it unlocks credit for the whole value chain. So for the first time, by tokenizing assets, the producer can access to credit provided by whoever does the export piece of that. And that's very unique. There's another company that is tokenizing airline tickets. And this is a global thing, right? And most of their clients are not in Latin America, but they are from Argentina. So those themes, those unique themes, are starting to bubble up. We are looking at the convergence of AI and Web3. That's something we are still trying to figure out how it's going to work. But clearly, we probably heard a lot about
I think
this
many people
idea.
are trying to figure
Yeah,
it out.
this idea of bots talking to each other and sending crypto. We'll see how it works. But
I like it.
yeah.
I want to talk to you about sort of the threading the needle between regionalism in a global technology, right? I think it's really interesting to see how Avalanche is playing that. This is a borderless technology, peer-to-peer electronic cash, no
Right.
borders. It's the original vision. But within it, you have these regions that exist in the real world that have different strengths, weaknesses. I think you guys have an interesting approach to sort of identifying regional value in a global tech stack. Talk to me about how you're viewing that in Latin America, and then obviously beyond across
Sure.
the rest of the team.
I think that so it is true. The technology is global by construction, and that actually makes the regional play a lot more interesting, because each region, like you mentioned, has its strengths and its weaknesses, and it's all a reflection of the internal struggles within the region. So in Argentina, it's going to be hyperinflation. It's going to be a fractured financial system. If you go to Ghana, perhaps it's different problems. In Asia, it's going to be different. And so it's a bet on the talent, really. But ultimately, they're going to be producing global solutions. So each talent, given the problems that they're trying to solve, they will be also solving the problem all the way to Asia. But that's the problem that they see closest to their heart. And that's a bit the way that we're thinking about it. And that's why this LatAm fund is a bet on the talent of the region that we know certainly is going to be a global player as it goes forward.
Yeah, my knowledge of the VC scene is a little dated, so I just want to throw this to you. Do you see more regional funds popping up where there is a specific regional focus, or is that still more of a niche play within the world of crypto VC?
I think, to be honest, I think that we're in a very unique position because we're playing both things. We have other funds that are themed around like specific verticals within Web3. We have a deep-in fund, which so we know the global markets, but we have very strong local connections. It's not easy to replicate, and also the market is not as big to have 10 different Web3 VC funds operating locally in the region. We are friends with all the local non-crypto VCs that are doing like marginal VC investments in the space, and they look at us as the experts, right? And I think that the same thing happens when we talk to other investors outside of the region, and we talk to some entrepreneurs that say, hey, I know the ex-investor in the US, they are super strong, they like what we do, we're just too far. And so being a local player allows us to somehow be the right partners for all these people to deploy the initial capital. And then it's a signaling, right? Here's a team that can go global. Let's help them go there.
You mentioned the regulatory sandbox piece, and I think I want to go back to that because it is interesting, right? It enables all these experiments to potentially thrive. Yeah. Some sandboxes exist, some may exist soon. Do you get involved in trying to push for that regulatory safe zone, or you just sort of let that play out and then act? How does that work?
We are part of the community, and we want this ecosystem to grow. So definitely, as long as we start getting more involved, we are going to be more involved in those conversations. But the other thing that, especially for example in Argentina grew as one of the leaders in adoption without any regulation. It's just like a need. It's coming from the roots, And I think that in Latin America, you see a lot of that. There's really the real reason why blockchain technology thrives in this region is because everything else doesn't work. And sometimes it's what you need. And I think that that's also important for global projects to understand that the region can be an incredible place to deploy their technologies and learn how the use cases apply to real people.
Ariel, Matthias, I'm so sorry. We got to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having
All
me.
right, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thanks, man. Good job.
Thanks.
welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and we are celebrating Avalanche's latest and greatest upgrade, Avalanche 9000. Now, we have Mike joining us. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. How are you?
How's your day going?
I had a nice walk in the park before I got here.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, and what are you looking forward to today?
I'm looking forward to spending some time with the Go-Go Pool folks. They've got a happy hour today, and we're going to be working with them on some of their validators on our L1 Avalanche that should be starting in January. So pretty excited about that.
Tell us more about that.
So Blockticity as a platform, we work with supply chain businesses around the world, and we authenticate their critical documents that people go after and manipulate when they leave their chain of custody and supply chain. So in the global market of about $28.5 trillion worth of real world assets that go around the world in supply chain, 4.7 trillion, around 20%, have unverifiable documents. So as a platform, we've done about 40,000 certificates on C-Chain on Avalanche. We're launching our L1 pretty soon. We're excited about it. The client has intellectual property which sits in their CRM. They have IP that goes on these products leaving the supply chain, whether it's a due diligence statement or a certificate of analysis or an SGS report. We make a digital twin, which is immutable and tamper evidence on blockchain that travels with that goods through the supply chain to get them to its final destination. Nobody would care about this if the authority having jurisdiction or the country that it's going to didn't have rules and regulations. So we write standards, international standards, with an organization called ASTM, and then we get the government that has the challenges with the product and the stakeholder, who's the operator, to agree on that SOP, and then that's how we build it out on Avalanche.
Now, Mike, I told everyone who's watching this that we were going to be talking about psychedelics and the blockchain.
Yes.
And I know that it was last year now, a while ago now, that this was applied to psychedelics. Talk to us a little bit about that. What's the use case there?
So one of our clients is a DEA licensed laboratory, and they've got 3,000 clients in 18 countries. And they test for cannabis above 0.3% THC, hemp, which is same thing as cannabis, below 0.3% THC, psilocybin mushrooms, amanita mushrooms, and kratom. And these are scheduled substances that have different rules and regulations around the world. So for cannabis, you can't cross state lines. So they have physical track and trace. So cannabis is a very easy product to trace. But psychedelics, mushrooms, hemp products, there is no physical track and trace. So that's where people manipulate these lab reports that you need if you're going to purchase something. So to buy $100,000 of, let's say, mushrooms, because you're going to put them into bottles and sell them to customers, you have to certify in that due diligence that there's a third-party lab that tested them, and there's certain things that are not in them, and it tells the potency. So we minted, I think, 30,000 of those certificates, and we just signed a contract with that company to sign another, probably going to do another 1 million in the next year. So making the digital twins of those lab reports are critical, so that the person that's going to take that product knows this is a real report and hasn't been manipulated by any of the bad movers in the market.
All right, Mike, when you're out here talking supply chain on the blockchain, how do you defeat the ghost of the IBM lettuce commercial from like 2018?
I knew Zach was going to ask.
How do you kill off that ghost such that the OGs are like, okay, this can work this time? And my real question is, in those past supply chain failures, are there any lessons that you're taking to make it work at scale now?
So my impression is it's a cultural issue. And so culturally, Web 2 enterprise companies are very nervous to dip their toe into the blockchain pool. They don't want to take their SAP database and transfer it over. They don't want to take payments from their clients on crypto. So we are very Web 2 friendly as a company. So we tell them, look, leave your CRM data in your CRM. Let's just make digital twins of these products going over here, and we'll attach them to any tracking device that you prefer. So for medication, you need a temperature control tracking device. For clothing, you can do an embeddable watermark. There's all sorts of different ways to do that. We don't care what it is. We will bring whatever tracking device back onto the certificate. The other thing is we give everybody a free trial to try it first, and you pay as you go. You pay as you mint. So for that reason, we're not asking for 300 grand up front from an IT department that doesn't understand or is a little averse to the Web3 community. So we are faster and more agile than some of the larger companies out there.
I remember that a lot of failings in that first wave of enterprise blockchain innovation had to do with this consortium model, right? You go to Maersk and you say, Maersk, you're the biggest shipping company in the world. Let's team up with all these other people, and it's gonna be trade lanes. It's gonna be great. And the consortium part seemed to be a weak spot. Seemed to be the Achilles heel in terms of getting this stuff to work. Are you guys approaching it more individually, one to one on the B2B front, or no?
So we're doing two tacks. One, we're going one-to-one, but the consortium model is scary because there's intellectual property.
Yeah.
So one of our clients is the Colombian Coffee Federation, right? So they have a new rule this year that the European Union requires geospatial coordinates on every bag of coffee to prove deforestation did not occur at the source of origin. They have a database of hundreds or thousands of coffee growers, and that database is their intellectual property. But they have to relinquish the geospatial coordinates for each bag of coffee to pass the EU border inspection. So using it on a permission blockchain allows them to give access, allow these products to move through, pass the border inspection, and then shut up the permissions. So they're still protecting that IP. That is where I think the one-to-one can work, but also we work in the regulatory industry and we write global standards so that that country or that authority having jurisdiction believes, hey, there's an international standard that acknowledges and shows blockchain as a solution, so they're more open to letting us use it.
Is that so? You mentioned that you're launching the Avalanche L1 that you're excited about.
Yes.
Is that the permission environment
Yes.
that gives you the ability
Yeah.
to do this with sensitive stuff?
It does three things. It gives you the permission so that we can protect the IP of our clients. We can now use medical patient data. We can be HIPAA approved on that. We can work with government agencies in this type of environment. It gives us a scalability. So we just signed a purchase order for 50 million COAs over the next 5 years. I couldn't do that as comfortably on C-Chain because I just don't know how fast I can scale because there's a bottleneck of how much I can mint at a time. And then it's enterprise ready. So being able to be enterprise ready, now I can go to a government, I can go to a large company, I can go to a trade association of an industry in a certain region and say, we can roll this out for anybody in your area, and we'll do it to show you that it works. We'll do it for free first.
All right, Mike, I'm now a track and trace bull. It's not sexy, but I'm bullish on track and trace now.
It's really easy to convince Zach, I feel.
Hey, that was a compelling argument.
It was a really
was
good,
well
compelling
articulated.
argument. Yeah, and you really reinvigorated the
Track and trace.
blockchain
Track and
use
trace.
case for supply
Read
chain.
the meme coins, man. Track
for
and trace.
us. All right, Mike, we gotta wrap it here. Thank you very much,
so much. I
for
appreciate
joining us on our live
Yes,
broadcast.
Yep.
That was Blockticity CEO and co-founder Mike Koner. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, more conversations right here from this desk. I say your last? Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are coming to you live from Buenos Aires, Argentina, from day 2 of the Avalanche Summit. We are just getting started here. People are starting to trickle in. The vibes are getting going. I'm Jen Sanasi. I'm here with Zach Seward. The vibes are going out there. The vibes are going on stage. We are now joined by Hannah. She is the head of BD for Solana LATAM. Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's your read of the Avalanche community right now? You're are you scoping it out? What are you seeing?
It's been an awesome event. I've been here yesterday. I had the chance to be on a panel talking about the regulatory landscape in Argentina with friends of mine. So I'm very engaged with the local community here, crypto community. I've been in the space for 8 years now, and so I try to help a little bit between the intersection between public and private sector. But the vibes are awesome. Thank you for the event. It's going great.
Hannah, we've been asking several of the people who've joined us on the stage what their genesis story has been, especially here in this region, and they've all been so interesting. So I'd love to hear what your genesis story was. You've been in the space for 8 years. How'd you get into it?
I think everyone has a great story here because in Latin America, as you can see it, we have like real problems to solve. And so I especially think that crypto is the best solution for our financial problems. We had like, especially in Argentina, I'm based here for 20 years now. I'm from Brazil, actually. I was born in São Paulo. But Brazil has different use cases. Argentina has like several macroeconomic problems and financial problems. And so people here, so over-educated in financial stuff, and so crypto really seems the best way to educate people and to solve their I mean, to offer solutions for real stuff. And so I think everyone in the space right now is interested in get people's lives better. And so my first task on the space was 8 years ago. I was working as a BD for a hedge fund for a financial in the financial markets. It was pretty hard. And so I understood that maybe on the B2C side, on the retail side, there was a lot of more opportunities. And so I had the pleasure to be the co-founder of one of the greatest crypto wallets here in Argentina. It's called Bello. Greetings for my friends from Bello. And so, yeah, and so I think especially because we understand that we have to push crypto forward here to be on the real life, solving real problems. It's not that we love the hype, and so I think you can see it here. You can see it through the projects, through the startups, through the dev and the builders energy. And so yeah, I think we have all the same kind of like we get together in this point that we love to solve problems.
Yeah, you mentioned the intersection of the private and public sectors in this region. What are you doing to advance conversations at that nexus of public and private? Would you see positive momentum in Argentina or even in Brazil? What's happening on the regulatory side that gives you hope for these things growing even further?
Sure. I'm super optimistic right now. I think we have this moment in time that we have to push forward and put all efforts to build, because we have in Brazil's like one step ahead because they have the sandbox. They're trying really hard to push some initiatives, and the Central Bank of Brazil is super straightforward, and they look they're on the edge. And here in Argentina, we have this momentum when regulations are getting loosely, not so tight, and so we can think about not regulating right now. And so I think that the public sector is looking for us with this idea that we can really improve the economy here in Argentina through digital products and services. And so blockchain is a super good idea for Argentina right now. And I think we have to be optimistic because Argentina has been suffering for such a long time. And so I think we are getting along together right now with the public sector. I have the chance to be in several different initiatives with the public sector, and I'm optimistic. I think this time we're gonna make it.
Regulation has been a challenge for folks who are building in other regions. It sounds like maybe less of a challenge here. For you who've been building in several different aspects of the space over the last 8 years, what would you say the biggest barrier is for getting a crypto product to market?
I'm going to talk a little bit more about Argentina, because Argentina it's a pretty small market, and so but we have several points that they're like competitive advantages for us in the region. We are a great test market country, so and we have this great developer community, and you have this power to build products here. And so I think that folks on the government, they are trying to understand how they can leverage all this energy, all things that are happening here. You can see I was part of a left of crecimiento, and so we can saw this past months that we have this incredible energy to build. And so we're getting along with them because I think the obstacles, they are not so, I mean, there's not a proper regulation right now. And so we're trying to ask for, I mean, just go and build, and don't ask for permission, ask maybe sorry later. And so go on and build. I think that's the energy right now in Argentina.
That's the Uber approach.
Yep.
Ask for what?
Forgiveness
rather than
Forgiveness
permission, yeah.
rather than
That's also my
permission.
approach, just to life.
Yeah.
That's so nice. All right, my question is, so we're talking about builders, right? And I think in Argentina, it's very much about like real world impact, right? We heard from our previous guests, this is a fractured economy. Everything's broken, and in some cases, blockchain is the best tool to fix these things. And you mentioned this, vibrant developer ecosystem here. So when you're talking to builders in this market and perhaps around the region, how are they assessing which chains to build on as they think about these solutions that they want to bring to bear?
I think the idea here, what I can feel is that it's pretty bottom up. I mean, to land here to market access Latin America, and especially Argentina, you have to be very, very close to the communities. And so all these efforts that the ambassadors they do with the communities, the local communities, and so it's really top. It's bottom up. I mean, all the efforts, and so it's super important to give them access to education, awareness, and to the meetups and all this things that community does to get them to our proposals and our chains and on our solutions. But I think there's room for everyone, and so especially because we have so many problems to solve. That most probably in my vision, I guess, every chain or every project or every protocol will going to find their own niche, and so they're going to get along with the proper community to work on that problem. Yeah.
Yeah, we heard that, like, say a Tron wallet is something that people use often to exchange USDT into pesos or dollars. What are sort of the hot networks among Argentinian builders, right? Is it Tron? Is it Solana? Is it Avalanche? Is it Mainnet? Is it Base? Any of these rollups?
Yeah.
What's sort of the vibe? What's the vibe report right now?
All of them, because I'm pretty into. Since 2018, the Ethereum community was super, super huge here, and they made this huge effort among the community to, spread the ethos of Ethereum and so on. But I think there's room for everyone. USDT and USDC maybe a little bit less, but they're so popular because Argentinians have to exchange their money for dollars, and so the only possible way. I mean, you've heard this 100 times right now, one day, and you've heard this 100 times. So it's pretty clear the use case. You have to exchange your money for dollars because you have to protect yourself from inflation. And so there's room for everyone working on stable coins. I mean, the case for stable coins in Argentina is super clear. Yeah.
So if I'm doing a lot of my personal finances in stable coins, are you seeing commensurate growth in, say, DeFi lending protocols on these networks where I can also get yield if I'm lending out my assets? Is that also happening, or are most people just using these again to protect their wealth or protect their savings and to do actual commerce?
I guess it's increasing because for that case you have to have a minimum awareness and education on finance, and so. But since it's easy to get to those protocols, I mean, the UX is getting better. At the beginning, it was crap. It was so complicated to stake, and to trade it was impossible. Right now, I think it's more a problem of UX to get closer to the people, because all of Argentinians, I guess, they right now understand how to protect their savings in USDC, USDT, because it's pretty easy. I mean, the wallets, they're super, super friendly. You don't have any frictions, and you can just go and from your bank account to a crypto wallet right now and just buy USDT or USDC. And so the first stage is pretty clear. The second stage, you have to get there through a better UX, I guess. Yeah.
We got to wrap up in just a second, but we mentioned crecimiento a few times. We were introduced to that yesterday here on the show. You said you were a part of it. That really is this growth movement here in the country. Before we go, what do you think it's going to take to make Argentina a global Web3 hub?
I have some of my friends here at the event. We've been sharing this past month, trying to understand Buenos Aires as a global hub. We think that we need support from the public sector to really push forward the sandbox, the regulatory sandbox, and then you have to normalize the economy and to lay down capital controls and so on. But the first thing is to let us experiment and try some stuff new in the sandbox. I guess this is the first case, and then Buenos Aires is the best city in the world for me, for global nomads, digital nomads, and so you have to just come here and try and see it for yourself.
Hannah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was head of BD for Solana LATAM, Hannah Schuma. All right, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thanks, Hannah. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to CoinDesk Live. We are here in Buenos Aires, Argentina, for day 2 of the Avalanche Summit. We are all celebrating the latest and greatest upgrade, Avalanche 9000. I'm Jen Sanasi, here with my co-host, Zach Seward. Wave to everyone, Zach. And we are now joined by Leandro Demo. Leandro is the ecosystem lead at the Avalanche Foundation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, well, we've been talking about the event. We're getting geared up for day 2. We've talked a lot about gaming, talked a lot about stablecoin, a lot about growth in the region. What's something that we missed that is a common narrative, not a common, but something that is near and dear to your heart that we need to be talking about?
Well, I think the most important thing for me, since my main focus working at Avalanche is Argentina and Latin America, I'm super impressed with what the result of this event, and having the local community mixed with a lot of people coming from all over the place, you included. For me, it's super good to see, and it opens up a lot of opportunities for builders, for local builders, to network, to get to know people from VCs, to our team from Avalanche, media, and to get to know our developers, our engineers, go to workshops. We have the hackathon coming up, which is a pretty big deal. We have like 220 hackers already signed up. So we are getting a lot of engagement from local builders, which is our main focus and the reason why we are doing all this.
What's going on at the hackathon? You seen any good stuff coming from the hackers? What are they working on? You've been talking to those folks?
Yeah, we actually we're having a lot of different activations since a long time ago, and one of those was a hackathon with Crecimiento not too long ago. It was in August, and a lot of the hackers who participated there, and we had a track for them at that.
You know who won?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Well, actually, more interesting than who won, because there were a lot of winners. One of them who participated there actually got onboarded to Codebase, which is our accelerator in the ecosystem. So that's an even bigger prize than winning the hackathon, because they get 3 months of mentorships and a lot of support from our teams, from Codebase team, from Avalanche team, and from many partners. They get financial support, and it's really a pathway to really accelerate their product. The name of the team is Validar, and they are building like a combination between DIDs and certifications of documents on chain. So it has many applications, like to reduce a lot of frictions in the public sector, and also for signing contracts and having legal validity to that kind of documents.
What's the best thing about working in this ecosystem? What do you like most about the builders that you're working with day in, day out?
I think, in particular, in Argentina, which is my main focus, I do work all over LATAM, but since I live here, I'm based here, and I get to talk to a lot of developers, and also to support them with the many programs we have in the ecosystem. I think Argentina is very strong in terms of the technical capabilities of the developers. There's a high level of technical education, and that helps a lot to onboard builders, developers to build on blockchain. And that's something it's not super easy to find in other countries, especially in developing countries. So I think between the mix of the complex economic conditions we have in the country, which led to a lot of user adoption of blockchain and crypto in general, and mixing that with a very strong base of developers in general, and a very strong entrepreneurship culture we have here, I think it's all the condiments you need to
to really build something interesting.
Do you think, like, quote unquote, normal developers, Web2 developers in Argentina are more receptive to building with Web3 technologies? It's something that we heard from John Wu, right? That he wants to bring as many of those developers into the Web3 ecosystem as possible. Do you find that when you're talking to non-crypto developers in Argentina, they're willing to give it a try in terms of playing around with or building things in the world of crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the interesting things about the local ecosystem here, I think, is here you can solve actual problems, serious problems we have every day in our lives here in the country, going from economic issues and also to these kind of things that we were talking about, like frictions in the public sector or with the administration and that kind of things. So building on blockchain and using crypto is not seen as something so negative as it can be in other countries. It has actually a positive spin, and when you talk to Web2 developers about the possibilities of building on crypto, they actually get super excited, especially when you talk to people in universities, students. You don't have an issue like bringing them in and getting them interested in the technology.
You mentioned the startup that went through Avalanche's incubator that had to do with DID and bringing government documents on chain. Yesterday on the show, we talked to the Secretary of Innovation here in Buenos Aires, Diego Fernandez, who's been working on a similar initiative with the Buenos Aires government. From someone who lives here, I would just love to hear from you how that project is going. Do people in Buenos Aires kind of understand what it means to have a decentralized ID and to have their documents like their driver's license and birth certificate on chain from an outsider's perspective? Is the project working and thriving?
Yeah, for the one that actually entered in Codebase in the accelerator, they're very early, so
I know, two separate things.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify that for everyone.
They haven't launched like a final product already. Hopefully, after passing through the accelerator, they will. But Quark ID, which is the product being built by the government of Buenos Aires, is actually a super interesting application, and they are also kind of in an early stage yet, but we have been doing some tests here in the city. For instance, when we had the pop-up city Crecimiento, we even used that for accessing different services around the pop-up city, and it started to work really well. People adopted it really fast. I think the main issue there is having a friendly UX, a friendly UI as well. And I think if you cover that with actual solutions for everyday things, they plan to use that, for instance, to log into banks or government databases, I don't know, fintech applications. So once that all starts coming together, I think and when we have a seamless experience for that, I think people will have no problem adopting that. Yeah.
Leandro, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That was Leandro Davo, ecosystem lead at the Avalanche Foundation. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Thanks, Leandro.
And welcome back to CoinDesk live from the Avalanche Summit. The summit is gearing up for day 2. We are winding down, and we invited our favorite guest from yesterday back to the show at Avalab's CMO Grad Con. Look at this shirt. You just really look like you are soaking up the Buenos Aires energy.
I feel like I'm this very colorful insert between this very sort of New York package on either side.
Well, we got to bring the New York sometimes. All right, Grad, we are gearing up for day 2
Yeah.
here. We wrapped
Yeah.
up day 1
The
with
grill
you
started. You can smell the smoke.
yesterday.
People are coming in. The chairs are all colorful. It's going to be an amazing day.
Juggling is happening. I'm going to take a picture,
Oh,
and Zach's
juggling,
going to
yeah.
ask you a question.
She's bouncing on the unicycle while juggling. That's hot. That's great.
We got
Yeah.
the what do you call this? A stilt walker?
Stilt walker. I think
Stilt
that's fair.
walker.
Yeah.
Got the stilt walker in green
Yeah,
there.
he looks like a really normal guy.
We got Jen taking a grandma iPad photo again. Shout out to Jen. Love a good iPad photo on the stream. Love that. All right, man. So what are you excited for day 2? Day 1 in the books. We covered day 1 yesterday. Day 2. What are the highlights?
Well, so we're starting off with a keynote from Akash on core, and I'm going to be running over to that as soon as we finish this. It's going to be great. We've got some great sessions today covering policy. There's some really interesting things around the region. We have a whole LATAM track. So one of the things about these regional summits that's really fun is that we actually are going to have tracks of people from the region talking about the unique needs of the region. And when you do a global summit, you don't tend to do that. So that makes it much more local. So excited about that. There are a bunch of great showcases for a bunch of our partners. And so I'm going to be seeing in on a bunch of those. And then, I'm going to have some beef. And over there, they got beef there. And a stand over here, apparently, there's also beef.
Okay, well,
so
we
it's,
are in Buenos Aires, so there's a lot of beef. Grad, we were at dinner last night and we were talking about the Avalanche community, and you said something that was really interesting to me. It was that you have such an engaged.
That was off the record.
No, it was that you have such an engaged.
It is a great community,
right?
yeah.
And oftentimes in Web3, we see these engaged communities, but they are being incentivized for their participation and their engagement.
Great comment.
And you had mentioned that there are no incentives. It's folks who really just believe in the progression of Web3. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about those communities in LATAM, but in some of the other regions that they are active in.
Well, so the thing that makes, I think, Goon is a key leader in this, that Goon's always focused on the tech. And generally, if you sort of scratch anyone in the Web3 community and say, where's the best tech, they'll even grudgingly say, yeah, it's Avalanche. Now, there's a lot of other things that happen in the community, but we sort of ignore that, and we really focus on the tech because ultimately, you've heard all these people talk over the last 2 hours, it's the tech that's going to drive it. And so when it kind of absolutely positively has to work, and when it absolutely positively has to scale, it absolutely positively has to be Avalanche. And I think that's where we get the people who are the serious builders. We get the people who are like JP Morgan Chase and Citibank and Franklin Templeton and Off the Grid and DMV and FEMA, like people who have massive scaled things that can't fail, that must work. They come to Avalanche, and they don't come just straight to Avalanche. They look at everything in the space, and then they make the decision to come to us. And I think that's something that we're incredibly proud of, and that's what makes Avalanche, I think, very different. Ultimately, in the end, the best tech when you're a platform is super important. And we've seen that repeated over and over in platform wars, starting from VHS tapes all the way to iOS. And so the best tech is always going to be the most important thing, and that's what we have to stay focused.
At the risk of offending your BD team, what's the percentage in terms of inbounds to outbounds, right? You mentioned some of these initiatives that have been announced on Avalanche in the last 12 months, from the DMV in California all the way to the big boys on Wall Street. Is that mostly inbound stuff, or do you have a strategy when it comes to deploying people to get in front of these folks who are looking to deploy on blockchain?
That's a really interesting question, actually.
What?
That's a really interesting question. Yeah. So I would say it's a combination. It's kind of a little. It's more nuanced than it's inbound versus outbound. So what'll happen is typically an inbound query will come that someone is looking into it, and then the BD team will pick up that ball and does an amazing job of helping them understand the advantages of working on Avalanche. So I would say one of our secret sauces is actually John Nahas and his BD team. They have done an incredible job of making sure that people understand the story, and they also there's a subtlety here. We hear this over and over again, but they approach it in a very professional and business-like manner. And so people feel like I can work with these people. They get that I'm running a business. They get that I'm running an organization. I'm FEMA. Like they get I can't fail, and I can trust them to be part of my partnership. So BD is absolutely critical, but it also usually starts by inbound, because at this point, we're at a very, very early stage in the development of this whole category. And so you can't get out to the 100 million companies out there and hit them all. You have to serve, to a certain extent, they have to self-select and decide that they want to look at this tech.
Oh yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate the behind the
makes
scenes.
sense, yeah,
The
yeah.
behind the scenes glimpse there is interesting, and I know you guys are focused so much on regionalism. We had a nice conversation about sort of threading the needle between regional and a global technology. Is there also a regional overlay on the BD leads, or is that something that's more topical in nature?
Yeah, so the BD leads have a regional focus because language is important. And so we have, again, amazing BD people in APAC and here in LATAM. And so we're continuing to build that out. We've sort of divided the world into 4 sectors. We've got Latin America, which includes Mexico, which is actually part of North America, but we've done Latin America because we've got 2 languages. It's a little easier to manage. We've got US and Canada. That's the second region. We've got EMEA, which is Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Africa is going to grow very quickly. I'm very excited about that. And then we've got Asia Pacific. So those are our 4 regions, and we'll be doing events like this in all 4 of those regions.
Nice.
But we will announce the next one on Friday.
That's very exciting. So many people have been teasing that out, but no one has told
And
us what
ironically,
the
the
next
2 of
one
you
is.
actually know, but you can't say anything.
Yeah, we can't
'cause it was
say. We've
off
been
the record. I
sworn
know.
Say.
It's so good. You've been so
Rules,
good. I'm so
journalistic
proud.
engagement.
Talk to me a little bit about the secret sauce from a marketing perspective when marketing a chain like Avalanche. We have the big splashy names, some of them you mentioned.
Yeah.
We have the need to attract talented builders. What's the balance there? Because I imagine partnering with Wall Street and some of the big brands brings value to the chain, but you also need people who are building good things for people to use on the chain. So what's the balance there when you're looking at it from a marketing perspective?
The balance between like DGen and OG and then institutions, that kind of idea. Well, so again, I think that goes back to this thing we were talking about a little bit yesterday, which is, we're a general purpose platform, not chain, but platform, right? Because we've got our own L1, that is our primary chain. You can build your own L1, which is why people ultimately come to us, and then it's all connected together. But it's like, we're not saying that, you have to be a certain size to work on this. You can be anybody. In fact, with all the changes that we announced yesterday in Avalanche 9000, you basically just need a laptop to set up your own L1. And I don't know if you've seen some of the developers talking about it online, but they're just doing this, and they're like, oh my God, 15 minutes, I'm up.
I'm going to set up.
I'm up with my own L1 in 15 minutes for like $1,000. That's like a really big change. And so if anything, what we're doing is we're actually pushing down empowerment more democratically to get to every single developer, particularly people in regions that are maybe got less money available. We're making sure anyone can build an L1, and obviously it's still very appropriate for JP Morgan Chase. And it's very much like any big platform. You think about Windows. Does Windows say only big companies can build on Windows? Of course not. All sorts of developers build on Windows. In iOS, is it only big companies that build on iOS? Of course not. There's lots of 1 or 2 person people who make apps. So you have to have a very open tent for everyone to be part of it. Because you also never know which one of those 1-2 developer teams is going to turn into the next big thing.
As a marketer, do you put more value to one or the other?
What, audiences?
No, to, the marketing benefit of having this big name, or just like really talented people who are building something. Like,
yeah, that's a great point. So I actually don't believe in marketing by names. So there have been marketing approaches where it's like announcements like, look who we have. And it always reminds me a little bit of Web 1. So this is going back a little bit in time. But in Web 1, there's a thing that emerged called a Barney agreement. I don't know if you remember what Barney agreements are. Do you know who Barney is?
Barney the dinosaur.
That's what it's based on.
Okay.
Purple guy? The big purple guy?
Yeah,
big
that
purple
guy.
dinosaur. So a Barney agreement. So I don't know if you know, what was Barney's favorite expression? Barney the dinosaur's favorite expression.
Oh, I don't remember.
You don't remember? Oh, I feel like
I didn't
a little
know he had
dinosaur heart
expressions.
just broke somewhere.
I didn't know he had expressions.
Okay, all right. So Barney's favorite expression was, "I love you and you love me."
Oh, okay, right.
So
We're
a
big
Barney
happy
agreement.
family?
So a Barney agreement is basically just a sort of agreement saying, "I love you, you love me," but there's no actual teeth to it. And people were doing a lot of these Barney agreements in Web 1 in an effort to make themselves seem bigger than they really were. And so I'm not a believer in that. I think that's ridiculous. And so what we have to do is we have to build the best tech, which we're very, very focused on. We have to engage our community to help us build that best tech, which we're hyper focused on. And this is a good example of it. And then we use the people who built on us as examples of how they're leveraging the tech. Like DeFi Kingdoms was up here. The Dream was up here earlier, or Dreamer Dreams was up here earlier. And they were our first L1. And they've done some really cool stuff, and they're not JP Morgan Chase. And I'm just as excited and proud and proud of our association with them as I would be of JP Morgan Chase, because they're both doing interesting things on the tech. But at the bottom of the day, it's the tech itself that you have to market, not the people on it. And you got to watch out for the Barney agreements. There's a ton of Barney agreements in this space.
What a blast from
and
the
they
past.
are dangerous.
So there's honestly a lot of those in crypto. That was actually our former Hash colleague, Will Foxley, would always bemoan the Barney agreements that were just the opportunistic token pump Barney agreement.
Right? That's how it.
Right.
Yeah, he would grumble about that all the time.
Channeling your inner Barney.
Yeah,
That's true. Yes, I think that was.
It's nice that we're hopefully maturing out of that stage of crypto marketing. I hope.
Well,
but there still will be that.
There's a great chart that shows user adoption of the web, and then it matches it against crypto. And so right now we're at 1997. So if you remember 1997, that was pretty wild and woolly. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on. All the stuff that we're sort of seeing, we criticize in crypto, all that happened in Web 1. It all happened in Web 1. And it didn't really stop until after the .com thing got blown through in 2000. So it was only 2001, 2002 when things normalized. So we're still probably 4 or 5 years away from kind of getting into like fully professional and working all the weird stuff out.
That's cool. So you think you're in the we're so early camp still?
Oh,
right?
we are so early.
I feel like this past year with like meme coins has kind of been like max nihilism in the space, right? Like meme coin phenomenon is like,
we've just totally given up. We don't care
exactly,
anymore. It's
right?
like
And
whatever.
So like,
we're just gonna run a casino and just totally be.
I guess honestly, that's why it's heartening to be in Buenos Aires, where it's like, okay, here's a problem. Here's
we're
a set
actually
of
can
tools.
solve real problems here.
This is some real stuff, because I feel like a lot of conversations I've been having over the past year have been like, on-chain activity is kind of stagnant. We've seen a recent uptick, I think, with some price excitement. And weird things are flourishing as the new shiny thing. You're saying that, hey, maybe we're poised for a new innovation cycle where a lot of on-chain activity happens in interesting, novel, real ways.
So if you think about Web 1, so what happened in Web 1? What was the killer app in the early stages of Web 1? Not Amazon.
Email.
No, email came before Web 1, by the way.
Okay.
Email existed in the 80s, but it's okay.
You got to define Web 1.
Web 1 is when the web browser, the email existed before the web browser, right? So anyway, because the internet's been around since 1967. But Web 1, what was the killer app? You know it.
Encarta.
Encarta, no.
No, I was gonna say.
It wasn't even mapping because we didn't have.
Instant messaging.
It's pornography.
Also good.
Okay.
It was pornography. Yeah. Pornography drove Web 1 in the early stages. Now, is that how you think about the web now?
Ours were so wholesome. Why you got to bring it to? We're talking about online encyclopedias.
So what happens? What's happening in Web 3?
All right, Zach, Grad, we are going off the rails here. We are at the end of the show. I don't want to subject folks to our banter any longer. Grad, it has been such a pleasure.
It's been great.
Thank you so much for joining us for the second day to wrap out the show. Again, the event has been great, and we look forward to experiencing it for the rest of the day.
Just check out avalanche9000.com.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who's been watching our live stream. It's been such a pleasure coming to you live from Buenos Aires, where we are celebrating the launch of Avalanche 9000. I'm Jen Sanasi. Thank you to my co-host, Zach Seward. Wonderful seeing you again.
Likewise.
We get to do it more.
Let's run it back.
All right. Bye, everyone.